Marcus, that was a pretty impressive smorgasbord of imagery from your time at IKEA. And before we talk about your new venture, which is fascinating and really hot off the press, could you give us a little insight and a bit of background to where you started in the design world, particularly at IKEA, because you had a number of moments in and out, ended up as Chief Design Officer.
True. I actually started out at IKEA when I was 16 years of age, pushing trolleys outside of stores. Then I worked as an interior designer in a lot of stores at IKEA and became a range strategist, global range strategist for the range. This is in the 90s. I was also marketing manager for IKEA, so it's quite diverse. Took on a lot of different topics.
You pushed trolleys, you were a marketing executive.
True, true. And then in the year 2000 or something, I actually left IKEA for the first time and started my own agency there. It was a retail agency, working with a lot of big retailers around the world, doing new concepts and new ranges and so on. And then 7 years ago, IKEA called and wanted me back in the position of head of design, so that's what I did.
So 7 years as running the design department, which must be the most important department there. You've now left. You left very recently, September.
Yeah.
Looking back over all those years, what would you say you're most proud of? What's your legacy, and what did you do at IKEA that changed?
I think actually the way to lead through good examples, instead of just talking and being visionary about things, because that's so easy to do when you take on a task like a head of design for a gigantic company, then you produce a lot of paper. But I wanted to lead by examples, so the way that we did it was to do all of those collaborations and collections to show that things are possible to do, both externally but also actually internally within the company. And that was a faster paced change than doing it through strategies.
So what I know of you, because Marcus you were one of the stars of one of the best fly-on-the-wall documentaries I've seen about a large company or a design company that the BBC produced. But what I took from that was that you really pivoted the company with collaborations with designers and creatives that you would never normally associate with IKEA. And I think it was a moment that a lot of people in my profession really opened our eyes, particularly I think Ilse Crawford and then Tom Dixon. Was that a
Is it just because they're British or what?
Well, Ilse has Swedish roots, but it's more that they represented something different. My time as editor of Wallpaper, no disrespect to IKEA, but it was not the market that we would normally engage with. When Ilse produced a collection for you, it suddenly became a different story. Was that a risk for you and at the company? Was it a gamble that could have gone wrong?
No, I don't think there was a risk actually, because we were truly curious about it, both me and Ilse, when we started out at the very beginning. She wanted to learn more about, mass manufacturing, and was it possible to do what she was doing on a mass manufacturing level. And we were at IKEA at the time super curious about her particularities around, how could you work with tactility within design. Yes. And the tactile parts. And I think that ended up in a good way. All of those collaborations has not been about names, it's been about learnings. Yeah. Actually, what could we learn together? Same thing with Tom, the same thing with Virgil Abloh right now, or Solange in Knowles, which we're working on at the moment.
So Virgil Abloh and who was the last one?
Solange in Knowles with Santeron.
So again, these are people you would never normally associate with IKEA, so it's really changing the perspective of what that company produces as well as...
It is, and also what I wanted to bring to the table, to the design department, and also working with design for a company like that, was maybe not just focusing on designers and product designers, but actually talking about creatives in general, and what happens if you mix and match different creatives to solve a task. So that's my way of working.
So it seemed you were really in your stride there, making differences and proving that difference and gambles can work, and you decide to leave. That's a big step to leave a company like IKEA after so long in and out. Firstly, why did you leave? I kind of know why, but it's a big leap and it's a gamble to start your own venture.
It is, of course, but I've always wanted to make change in different ways, and that's why I'm interested in working in design. The change that they wanted me to do at IKEA, I was more or less, gone through all of that. So I wanted to do something new. So that's the big step for me then. And then things I learned during my years at IKEA also, I saw things that I couldn't really do something about when I worked at IKEA, but I could do maybe on the outside. So that's why I started this new venture.
So now you're on the outside, and the new venture is...
Ta-ta.
Skewed.
Skewed, yeah.
Tell us about Skewed and why this is going to do something different.
Skewed is more like a network, actually, than a typical company. It is containing of 3 different parts. It is Skewed Productions, which is mostly resembling an agency. And then there is something called Skewed Conversations, which is a magazine coming up. And then there's Skewed Things, which is products, which is just about proving points to be able to do what you say.
So Skewed, three pillars. Skewed Productions,
which is the first one, yeah.
So you are not in the business of making things. You're in the business of making things better. That's quite a lofty, manifesto.
It is. But it is also my view upon design, actually, because I see a lot of crap happening out there. I don't think that you need to do just one more of everything.
Well,
do something that makes
showed
a
a lot of
instead.
crap earlier.
Yeah, she's good at that, isn't she?
It is a core. So Rethinking Stigmas, this is part of...
Here's some examples of what we're actually working on right now, and this is the first time we talk about it. One of the companies that I work with is a small company called Unique, which is actually working with prosthetics. And they've been going about this since 2014, and they do it in a very different way. I don't know if you know about this, but there's actually almost 1 billion people who has some kind of what we call a disability in the world. So it's quite a big target audience. And to get rid of those stigmas, which is together with that, to design for that in a better way. So they started out with covers for prosthetics. And then, actually, now, if you do come to the next one, what they're working on right now, and we're working on together, is actually something which is targeting young females, especially because they are the ones who are suffering from it. And it's scoliosis, and braces for scoliosis. And the way to do it is a new kind of value chain for how to produce and how to do design. It starts, and it's all digital, and this is a thing which interests me a lot. It starts with capturing data through 3D scanning or photometrics, turning that into algorithms, actually working with algorithms and generative design to shape that into things which are for each and every person, because this is highly personalized items, and then it's produced in 3D printing, all of it. So that means, actually, that you could get ladies like this far more happier. If you don't have braces when you're young and you have this disease, then you will go through a really painful operation to get rid of your scoliosis.
So this is really rethinking stigmas, but also...
but it's rethinking stigmas, but it's also, as I see it, it's also a new way of working with design, where the designer is more put into the role of designing design tools, rather than doing the actual product design. And I could see this as a part of also rethinking retailing for the future, because this means this production model and this, that you could almost go back to the old handicraft ways, but in a completely new way. So you go to a store where actually everything is produced for you on site while you're waiting.
So the future could be designers designing the tools for maybe other people to use.
That's a thing that I could foresee.
So a bigger role in a sense.
Yeah, it is, and a lot of talking about design from time to time is about being an author of things. I think that it could be so much bigger than just being an author for one more glass. I rather want being, making tools for a change.
From a starting point. Rethinking gaming gear.
Yeah, that's another topic. When you are, actually something that I stumbled upon when I was at IKEA. And at IKEA, we talked about serving the many people. And how the heck could you miss out on 2.2 billion people? And that's actually the gamers, the e-sporters. There was more people looking upon e-sport last year than looking upon the Olympic Games. And I think that's pretty fascinating. And those e-sporters, normal sport, we have invested a lot of time in designing their tools. But designing tools for e-sporters, nobody has done that. And that's highly individual also. And they spend 14 billion hours per week sitting down in not so good situations. So that's a big design situation, actually.
So you're rethinking the way their posture,
the posture, it's ergonomics, and it's also actually bringing the thinking from Unique that we did for disability, the medical wearables. How could you use that thinking and those learnings into ergonomics? So this is all about 3D printing as well, and using the same kind of design tools, but turning it into a completely different place.
Now we have Rethinking IKEA collab. So you haven't left completely.
No, I haven't left IKEA. I have, actually. I'm not employed anymore, but I still work for them. One of the things I work with is the future collaborations that they're going to have, and also how we could be more efficient with our collaborations. One of the things that I introduced while at IKEA was to have a more transparent approach, to share what we were doing, to get people to understand the value of low-priced things, that it's actually 3 years of hard work to make something which is as cheap as an IKEA item. And it was pretty simple. It was all about transparency. And the way that we do it right now is to maybe structure that a little bit and to work with design and communication hand in hand, and to merge those two departments and to merge that into one kind of strategic thinking. This is just a model for making things happen. It's like a 5-step approach.
Because you've said some mildly controversial things about the role or the conflict between design and marketing, and sometimes marketing...
Yeah, for me, it doesn't make sense, you know. You look upon the marketing department, it's like shitload of people, and then you have a design department, there's like just a few of them, and they're making the change, and then you have a lot of other people who's talking about what the ones who's actually making the change is doing, instead of letting them, you know, do the talk from the very beginning. So I think invest in design and being open about what you do and how you do stuff is the best kind of marketing. And this is coming from an old marketing manager.
Yeah, so you have experience in that, so you're not speaking from a point of ignorance. It's Mauro Porcini last year has a similar conflict he has, that it seems to be more attention paid on well, somebody famously said, marketing is the tax you pay for bad design.
But I think it's also, you know, we're in the period where everything is changing from a media perspective as well. Yeah. So now is the time to move money from marketing into design and to make design even more valuable.
Yeah. Rethinking fish.
Yeah, this is a funny one.
This is a realist joke.
Just started it, actually. And what it's all about is, you know, it's the protein sources of the future. We're going to need a lot more protein to survive if the population is growing like it is. And one of the most efficient protein sources is actually fish, and sustainably farmed fish, which is the future of fish as I see it. And this is a big topic that I'm into, together with some companies within the Baltic Sea, to rethink how you could do this, sustainable farming, but also to rethink new products. So what could be products that makes people more prone to buy fish for the future?
Interesting, but that's at the very early stages. This is still...
This is just begun, but I think it's a really interesting topic, actually. There's so many misconceptions about fish.
Yes. Next year we'll see we'll see what you've caught next year. So second pillar, Skewed Conversations. So I believe this is a magazine.
This is a magazine. You could call it a magazine, but it's also a part of the universe of Skewed. And starting out, you know, everybody wants to do a magazine once in their life. I wanted to make a magazine.
It's a tough business, I can tell you.
Which is a piece of art rather than a magazine. And it's also giving the voice to the people of one certain place at a time. So each and every magazine is actually going to take place in one place. Everything is going to happen in that place. And we're going to produce...
So it's location specific.
Location specific, and produced at that location as well. So it's two parts. It's one part which is just art pieces and pictures and images and also illustrations. And yeah, from that very place, no words whatsoever. And then there's one piece which is just words. This is just examples of how good it's still on mock-up stage. It's going to be launched before summer, so end of May you could look forward to this. It's going to be a lot about street culture, and the first one is going to be about Senegal and specifically Dakar, which is an interesting place right now.
And why? Why Senegal?
Because I think that there's a lot of good creatives coming there, and also me, I love the skateboard scene. I'm an old skateboarder myself, and there is something happening there, which is also interesting in the skateboard scene, so the street art, and you know, from the past, there's also a lot of things like you see here, Sally Rebeccain, which is a fashion designer, is an interesting individual as well.
Look forward to seeing that. Skewed Things, so this is product.
This is products.
So getting back to something you kind of know a little bit about.
Yeah, precisely. And this is like evolving, of course. It's just starting up. We're opening up a web store in maybe a week's time or something like that. Starting up with the basic stuff. What I wanted here is a place, it's the same way of thinking as actually for what I did for IKEA. It is to have proof points for your ways of thinking in real products. So here we do real products. Everything is going to be sustainably sourced, actually produced also in factories where it's only driven by sun and wind energy, people getting paid in a fair way in the factories, no matter where they are. 10% of everything that we earn is going to go to Skateistan, which is a non-profit organization working with skateboarding for young kids in different parts of the world, with skateboarding and education put together, actually. And the first areas, you always have to start, you know, since I've been working with range all the time, start with the boring stuff, because you need the boring stuff. And that is like the basics. You always need that perfect T-shirt. You always need that perfect hoodie and those things. And this is like the first things coming up. And secondly, it's going to be in collaboration with different designers from different parts of the world, connected to actually where we do the magazines. So the first batch of things which are not basics is going to come from Senegal and creatives in Senegal.
So while you're there producing the publication, you're making the connections,
We're doing all of that at the same time. You know, I love Swedish efficiency, so one trip, 1 week, all of it at the same time.
Get it all done. And the final slide we have here is intriguing. You're designing volcanoes.
Yeah, but everything sounds so serious. For me, I don't want to be looked upon like the most serious person ever. So one of the things that have been intriguing for me all my life is volcanoes. I truly love them. And I wanted to put volcanoes together with something which is very opposite of volcanoes. If you have been to a volcano, you know that the smell is not so, you know, that's not so good, actually. But I wanted to do like an incense volcano. So this is volcanoes, collectibles actually done with artisans from different parts of the world. And there is actually a volcano in Dakar, an old sleeping one. So this is going to be the first volcano we do with an incense from Dakar as well.
Fantastic. You must meet Sisal Tolas, who's speaking tomorrow, who is a scientist and artist. I can see a collaboration going there. We've talked to our allocated time, but I would like to offer some questions to the floor if they are brief. Questions to Marcus, are there any? While he's here. If not, the production team will be delighted because we've run out of time. But Marcus Engman, thank you very much. You've leapt out of IKEA, started something more interesting. Thank you so much.
Thank you.